Things started to open up, but it was the perseverance of black artistry that did it. You know, it wasn't like Hollywood saying, hey, come on over here and do this. No, Melvin Van Peebles wrote a movie called Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song, and no one expected that movie to do what it did. And once it did what it did, people were then on board because it made money, and they wanted to make money. The bottom line was, we'll do a black movie if it makes money. If it ain't gonna make no money, we're not interested. And that's when you started seeing other movies. And so guys that had written scripts, Max Julian and such, they were able to go to a studio and then sell something they wrote 5 years earlier, 7 years earlier. But that was the start of it. And then the studio said, okay, let's do Shaft. You know, they want to do their own version of things. And that was the emergence of Gordon Parks. But he had done the Learning Tree before. He was inside the power structure. And so they tapped him, okay, we got a movie for you, do this. But that's really because of Melvin.
You bred my mama, you bred my papa, but you won't bleed me.
My first role really was when I was in New York. I did a movie called Trick Baby, which was a book by Iceberg Slim, and I played a pimp. And I'll never forget, I went to the audition. It was mainly based in California, but they had a few speaking parts here in New York at the time. And so I had sent my picture and resume around all these different casting directors. They called me in and they said, okay, why don't you read this part? And what was the part? The part was the guy opening an apartment door and saying, I haven't seen him, and closing the door. And I said, is that the only? They said, well, no, there's another part of a pimp, but pfft, you don't look like a pimp. So just do this. So I said, okay. So I said, we haven't seen him. Close the door. So I got a call back. So what I did when I got the call back, I went up to Harlem, bought me a burgundy hat with a gold headband. I had a burgundy suit, and I had knee boots. And I walked in there looking like a pimp. So they said like this, well, you must be here for the pimp. And they gave me the sides, which are the lines. I read the lines, and then the pimp had like about 3 scenes, and in 2 scenes he talked or whatever it was. So I went in and I auditioned and I got the part.
I'm looking for Blue Howard and that half-hunky friend of his.
What that to me? Hey, I ain't seen him.
I want you to put them hoes out looking for him.
Yeah, well, they ain't gonna like that.
You a pimp, ain't you? They do what you tell them to do, don't they?
What do you want me to do, man? Let go.
I want them in every joint that's open. If they hear anything about them 2 swindlers, I want them to call you. And I want you to find me and tell me what they've heard.
So that was my first move, and it's a hustle. That was a hustle. And that's what I learned. That's the good thing about being in New York. You learn how to hustle. So that when I went back to LA, I got into a groove of hustling. And so I would be in plays and then try to get casting people or agents to come out and see me in plays. And everyone that I met, I told them, I'm looking for an agent. And I met a woman named Dolores Robinson. I'm looking for an agent. I'm looking for an agent. If I go to a party, I'm looking for an agent. Let everybody know. And finally, Dolores Robinson said, hey, I heard you're looking for an agent. I go, yeah, she said, I got somebody for you. And that's how I got my agent in Los Angeles. And then from there on, we were off and running. My first TV series was That's My Mama. And the reason I got that, so here's the deal. The reason I got That's My Mama is because of hustle. And I was at the American Film Institute. I won an award, and I had auditioned for That's My Mama before. It was called The First Family of Washington, which was with Godfrey Cambridge and Teresa Merritt. They did the pilot. They didn't like the pilot. They threw it out, and they went back to the drawing board, and they kept Teresa and got rid of everybody else. And they saw me, and they saw me and they said, okay, maybe we'll use you, maybe we won't. And because I had a little street character, but it was comedy, and I was supposed to be playing 18 years old. I had gray in my beard. I was 20-something years old, so I shaved everything off so that I looked 18. So I had this little street character that I had developed in my theater training. So that's what I did. So when they were putting together That's My Mama, first they said, okay, he's in it. Then they said, no, he's not in it. Well, he's in it. No, he's not in it, because they didn't want to put this street character in a comedy because it reminded them too much of a pimp. So, and I had the whole, today the example would be hip hop. You've got a white show and you're putting in a hip hop character, and they didn't want to do that, you know. Even though it was a black show, it was really a white show, and they didn't want to get too street on it. So that went back and forth about 8 times. So this is how I learned, going back and forth, I learned how not to have my heart broken when they say no. That's when I developed a thick skin, was on That's My Mama, because you're in. No, you're out. You're in. You're out. You're in. You're out. You're in. Out. Okay, so now I'm out, and the agent that I had at that time was a different agent than the one I told you about previously. My agent calls up Columbia Pictures and said, listen, Ted's going to be on the American Film Institute salute to James Cagney, and even though he's out, he just wanted to let you know. So the powers that be at Columbia watched the James Cagney AFI tribute.
The James Cagney Fellowship Award winners are Linda Jassem, Peter Santora, and Ted Lange.
And they saw me. And they said, well, I know someone said, well, Jesus, why are we how come we're not using this guy? He just got this recognition from the American Film Institute. So now I'm back in. But they're not sure if I'm going to work. So they only give me 4 lines, 1 scene. And that's what I did for about 12 episodes. 4 lines, 1 scene. I'd come in, and then they do. And what I found is that at that time, they're finding the formula for the show. And in finding the formula for the show, I would come in, give my 4 lines, and split. And the 4 lines had usually to do with the 2 heroes, Clifton and the postal worker, would get into trouble, and then they would get out of trouble. And just when they think they're out of trouble, I would come in and say, hey, you know how you guys did so-and-so and you think you're out of trouble? They would go, yeah. I said, well, you're not.
I got it, and I got to report it.
Well, Junior, if you got it, don't stand too close to me, huh?
Hey, man, not that. I got some news you will not believe.
Well, what is it?
The word at the pool hall is that your cousin Albert is a pot salesman, and I do not mean Tupperware.
And that was the formula for the show. So every week, and I was happy with that. I was on television. I called my family. I called my friends. I said, see. So, and then eventually, later on, they started giving me a little more to do. But basically, that was the formula. And that's what I learned about. So I was in a great position because I could sit back because the pressure wasn't on me to carry a show. So I could see how the system worked. So that when I got to Love Boat, when I did Love Boat, I know the first 10 episodes, they're looking for the formula. What's going to make it work? So what I found is in first 10 episodes of Love Boat, they would have all the white actors greet everybody on the boat, the captain, the doctor, cruise director, gopher. And so I would go to Bruce, I say, how come I'm not in the thing greeting people on? He said, well, you're the bartender. What would the bartender be doing greeting people as they come on board? And I said, well, what would the captain be doing? He's supposed to be up on the bridge. What's the doc doing there? He's supposed to be in sick bay. Now, I knew that they didn't want a black guy in the opening of the show. I knew that. Now, but I can't say that. I can't say, well, you guys, can I say fucking? I'd say, you guys are fucking with me. I couldn't say that. You guys are fucking with me. You just don't want me to be there. because you don't want no niggas on this show, really. And so at the end of the show, everybody would say goodbye. Hey, glad your situation worked out. Now that's the formula. The formula is the stars of the show would greet you, and at the end of the show, they would say goodbye to you. I wasn't in that. So I was going to the, I know from That's My Mama, they're trying to work out the formula. I want to be a part of that, because if I'm on the same status of the rest of the, I'm a star of the show. If I'm not there with those other 4 white folks, then I'm that black guy in the bar. And I didn't want to be just that black guy in the bar. I wanted to be Isaac Washington, a part of the ensemble. So that was my endeavor. And long story, but we eventually got there where I became a part of the people coming on, and I became a part of the people going off.
Well, this is one individual who is not going back to work today, no matter what the captain says.
Don't get excited, Gopher. We'll be able to work something out.
Not under discussion, Doc. I am not going back.
Well, have you got some kind of special dispensation we don't know about?
You might say that.
Ooh.
What happened?
Well, I think I'll let my personal physician handle a statement to the press.
I regret to inform you that our purser has been stricken with a dreaded malady commonly known as poison ivy.
Ew.
So while you poor stiffs are working away, I'll be home sleeping late, watching the telly, and in general having a good time.
You don't think the captain's gonna let you get away with that?
Hey, my buddy the doctor is gonna back me up.
But that was a fight. You know, they didn't give that to me. I didn't sit down and say, okay, I'm happy to have a gig, let's go on. No, I had to fight for that, because that's the game I'm in. And so you then have to make up in your mind, what do you want to do? You want to be the black bartender in the bar only serving drinks, or do you want to be a part of the structure of the show? And so what I fought for was to be a part of the structure of the show.
Fancy, there is nothing you have that I want, and I don't hustle for nobody.
Hustle?
You have lost your mind.
My ladies don't think that their nigga has lost his mind.
I worked with Pam Grier in a movie called Friday Foster. And I played, dun, da, 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 a pimp. I kind of had this part down. I don't know if I could do it today, but back then in the day, I could play you a pimp. Yeah, I did that. That was a low budget. You know who was in that movie? Carl Weathers was in that movie. There's Eartha Kitt. That was her comeback movie. There were a lot of people in that movie that went on to do other things in show business. And that was the kind of the fun of being in the black exploitation movies, is you saw people go on. I did another movie called Black Belt Jones, and Eric Lanaville was in that. Eric Lanaville is now one of your premier Hollywood directors, directs all these shows. But he was a kid in Black Belt Jones. And I came in, I had me one little scene in there, and I'll never forget, I had a line, Pinky, get your motherfucking ass out here.
Pinky! Bring your goddamn ass out here! Oh, shit. Hey, what the hell is going on here? Hey, man, we from the Black Student Union, you capitalistic motherfucker. And we demand that you stop selling dope in this shithouse and stop ripping off the black community.
And I'll never forget, a crew guy came up to me and said, man, you're good. You say motherfucking just like my wife. Because it was street. It was street. He said, Piggy, get your motherfucking ass out here. Now, that's not Isaac Washington, believe me when I tell you.
Up until the point that we had a riot, everybody said those niggas are all right. They're doing fine.
Okay,
Then when we riot, then when we had a riot, then the white man said, uh-oh, something's wrong. Because these suckers are burning down my store. And I got to give these niggas something because I thought they was happy.
WATTSTAX, I did WATTSTAX. Now, here's the interesting thing in WATTSTAX. I came back from New York, and I called some people up here in LA, and I said, what's going on? They said, hey, man, get over to David Walper. It's an open call. You don't need an agent or anything. They're looking for some actors to tell stories about black life. I said, what are you talking about? They said, all you got to do is tell some stories about it. I said, you mean all I got to do is talk and I can get the job? I don't have to read a part? They said, that's right. All you got to do is talk. And I said, shit, I got this job. You know, because ain't nobody talk better than me. And I'll talk a motherfucker under the table, Jack. And that's just what I did. I walked in the audition, that guy would throw out a subject matter. What do you think of barbecue ribs? And I would pontificate. And then, of course, because I have a sense of humor, I implemented the humor in my pontification. So I got me a job, and I was in WATTSTAX. And the interesting thing about that is the director was a guy named Mel Stewart. And Mel Stewart was a white guy, and so he said, you can say, there's nothing you can say that will bother me. Say whatever you want to say. And their main thing was that you don't say fuck too many times, you don't say motherfucker too many times. Can you tell a story without using swear words? Yes, I can do that. But the thing that intrigued me is there's nothing you can say that will upset me. Well, I don't know why, but then I'll start looking for things to fuck with that guy with. What can I say? So I started talking some shit, man, and I didn't hold nothing back. I just laid it all out, just talking shit.
My brother made me where I was a nigga, because he's high yellow. You dig? He's lighter than I am, right? So we was playing with some people, you know, we was running around doing this, doing that, and then they called him over, we was playing with some white kids, and they called him over and they whispered something in his ear, you know. So we went home, we was going home, and my brother jumped up and told me I was a nigga. And I looked at this sucker because I didn't know what the nigga was, you know. But these white boys, they identified with him because he was light-skinned. Dig? So he went and he told my mother that I was a black nigga and that he was a white boy.
Well, you know something?
You dig?
Well.
But dig, but see, my mother's bad. My mother checked that out and so she said, okay, cool, well then I'm not your mother. Because all my kids are niggas.
Years later, I bump into Mel Stewart. They're doing the 25th anniversary of WATTSTAX. And so he had followed my career and I had followed him. And we reconnected after 25 years. So you have to look at the dates. I don't know what it was. It's some years ago. And we became fast friends. And so every Tuesday night I would go over to Mel's office and I'd play poker with all these older white guys. And I would talk shit. I would talk shit to these white guys about show business, about being black, and about cards. And we had a good time. We had a good time. As a matter of fact, I wrote a play. He came and saw the first reading of my last play, Lady Patriot, which is about Mary Bowser. And Mary Bowser was a spy for the Union, and she worked as a slave in Jefferson Davis's house. Mel came and saw that, but he never got to see the production itself because he passed away. So I dedicated that play to him and a black actor named Dick Anthony Williams, because Dick Anthony Williams always came to my plays. He was a great supporter of mine. So I dedicated the play to those two gentlemen. No regrets whatsoever because there weren't no parts. Yeah, I could play a pimp, you know, but there weren't no parts. They weren't doing Othello. As a matter of fact, they didn't do Othello on film for a black guy till I got there.
When you watch movies, you may get some militancy, some so-called blackness, but overall what you're going to get green-lighted and the gatekeepers are going to let come through are those motion pictures which perpetuate the status quo.